this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Moore. I've heard said, particularly over the last few years, that it's never a good idea to drink your calories. It's an interesting thought. First off, you don't get the enjoyment of actually ingesting your food, I think. And there's kind of this idea of ingestion and then digestion with your food. You know, the process that your body goes through. To drink one's calories is really kind of a shortcut. There's something metabolic about it that, I don't know, inhibits your ability to maintain a healthy weight. I see a lot of my students drinking these coffee drinks, and, you know, I'm seeing figures that are in the thousands and thousands of calories. And listen, I'm not a cold coffee kind of guy. Never have been. I drink coffee for a couple of purposes. First, to start my day. Secondly, to wake up so that I don't kill people. And third, because I enjoy the warmth of it. But I have been known in the past to imbibe in the occasional smoothie. And they've got all varieties that are out there. But you know, never have I ever had a smoothie and thought, this could put my freedom at risk. Today, we're going to discuss a case involving a smoothie and the straw that was found within an empty cup. A straw that held evidence that actually closed out a cold case that had been open for over 40 years. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Dave, you drink cold coffee? I've seen you. You and I have actually had coffee together on air. You know, we'll sit there and toast each other every now and then. You know, I love my coffee. I know you love yours. You ever drink cold coffee at all?
No, I do not drink cold coffee. It's, you know, I drink cold tea and hot tea, but I do not drink cold coffee.
That's not my thing, man. I've got these students that come into my classes, and they've got these gigantic cups filled, with this stuff, and there'll be whipped cream on it and all kinds of stuff. And it looks grand. But I look at that and I think, I would, it costs about $1,000. I like milkshakes too, but I know that if I drank one every day, it would not be good for me. Have you ever had smoothies at all? Have you ever tried smoothies?
You're going down a path that I really feel bad. Look, man, just so you know, I don't eat vegetables and I eat ice cream. So I think that anything that is a smoothie, I'll go with my ice cream, or I'll drink a shake. I'll drink ice. I'll do that. But I really don't do the expensive drink thing. Yeah. And it really is like every time, and I mean this, okay, a little insight here. Yeah. I see a drink that costs $5 or $6, smoothie, a frozen drink, whatever it is. And my first thought is, I could buy a canister of Maxwell House or Folgers, and I just can't do that. I cannot break myself into doing it. And to be honest with you, I don't particularly care for them. When somebody buys me something, I try to be kind and, thank you. But it's like, I save your money. Really, there's a hose pipe. I'll get some water out of that. I'm good.
Yeah, no kidding. I feel the same way. I just couldn't. And listen, my and this is a shameless plug here. My family actually owns a coffee company.
Oh, gosh, that coffee's amazing.
I know, Abita Roasting Company down in Louisiana.
Oh, my gosh.
And friends, you can order it online, by the way, Abita Roasting Company. And when I got the inside line on coffee, that's who I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to my family and have them ship it to me. I like to make it home.
I've got to put that in the body of the stuff today, so you guys will know what I'm talking about. And shameless plug away. It's his family, and it's awesome. And I was very much prepared, Joe. I was prepared to say, "Oh, really good, thanks." Oh, man, it was awesome. I actually started not making it when people were over. No, they can get the Folgers.
You're hoarding it?
Yep, I did.
Well, I can tell you, we're literally right now as we're chatting, we're closing in on the end of October. Dave, I have it on good authority. I used to tell my kids I've actually got Santa's phone number, and so I've got Santa's phone number. I see a basket of Abita coming your way. So just keep that in mind.
Pretty excited about that. All right.
All right.
Let's grab this show by the heels here, Joe. This is one of these topics that comes up. It deals with DNA, and
Yeah.
it deals with a crime scene. It deals with evidence and holding on to it for a long time. It also deals with something that we have been involved with regard to Othram, helping solve or actually provide answers to families after years. I mean, what we've seen Othram do is just remarkable. It's such a change of the way crime is dealt with today. Crimes that happened 40, 50, 60 years ago. People thought they got away with it, and they're ending up in jail during their twilight years. We've got that scenario playing out today. A 16-year-old girl, Theresa Fusco. She was from Linwood, New Jersey. She's working at a skating rink, working at the snack shack inside a skating rink. Loved it. She was a dancer, okay, working part-time. She was a nice, beautiful 16-year-old girl. Theresa was also a virgin. And I will tell you, for those of us who grew up in the 70s and the early 80s, that was not a very common occurrence. And the fact that she was tells me a lot about who she was.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about her today is because she lost so much in the space of one night.
Yeah.
She got fired from the snack shop at the skating rink.
Yeah.
She had an argument with an assistant manager. So imagine this, you're working for minimum wage and you've got another minimum wage worker who has kissed butt enough to get into an assistant manager position.
Yeah.
And they're making your life miserable. And you get into a disagreement and the assistant manager fired from, think about it, an assistant manager at the snack bar inside a skating rink.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one step up from, the lowest of the low. I mean, think about it. And she got fired. Fired this beautiful girl. And so she's crying. It's 9:45. She's walking home. She lives 4 blocks from the skating rink. A normal path to walk. She never made it. Now, at first, her mom didn't get really worried because she was this is in the day before we had cell phones. Matter of fact, it's really the day before kids had beepers too. And as a 16-year-old, she had gone and done her job. She was going to stop by a friend's house and might spend the night. So mom didn't even think about it till the next morning when she woke up and realized Theresa had not been home. And she calls her friend. Is she still with you? No, she never came over last night. Immediately they knew right then we got problems.
Yeah.
And they did. Theresa Fusco vanished in the 9:45 when she left that skating rink. We don't know what happened to her that night and the following days and the weeks as the investigation went. It was crazy.
Yeah, it really was. And like you said, there was no way back during that, analog period of life, non-digital world where you could actually track somebody down. Do you remember, I don't know if your mom was ever a member of them, but do you remember phone trees where there would be a list of phone numbers, where moms would call, that sort of stuff. I know a lot of our friends out there can identify with that. But the chill that would run up and down your spine if you're a parent. And there's, first off, we kind of take it for granted now. We've got CCTV everywhere. We've got cell phones. Right. We've got traffic light imagery possible. All these things that didn't exist. People could, in fact, in 1984, literally fall out of society and never be known of again. And the fact that through our friends at Othram at this point in time, that there has been a resolution in this case all these years later is nothing short of a miracle, I think, because what are the odds? And what's fascinating is that with this child's father, who, by the way, is still alive. Mr. Fusco is still alive. And he said, I never gave up. I never lost faith in the system. And faith in the system nowadays is one of those things that's really hard to muster, I think. We see successes with people like like Othram. What people don't understand is that Othram is a private entity. Okay, it's not the government. Now the government calls them in to consult and do consultations on cases and that sort of thing, but they're not a government entity. And it took advances in technology, and it took cold case investigators that were still had an investment in this. Moving forward, and also some kind of interesting things along the side. I say interesting, and it's kind of a disservice, but kind of tragic things along the side as well.
It wasn't a cold case for long. They had it solved pretty quick, Joe. They had an arrest. Well, here's what happened, though. Okay,
Yeah.
She goes missing November the 10th. That's the night she doesn't make it home. Last seen crying as she leaves, fired by the assistant manager. 4 weeks later, December 5th, she is found under leaves, buried in brush, not far from the skating rink in a wooded area. Now, I don't know the actual geography, but that's how it is explained. And I'm thinking somebody nabbed her right then. Now, Joe, there is and I really wanted to find out from you what all of the evidence meant, because it sounded to me like she was killed fairly quickly after she left the skating rink, but some of the evidence might indicate otherwise.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Let me throw out one more thing here that's kind of chilling as well. Have you, and anybody in the sound of my voice, have you ever had a feeling when you walk out of an establishment that you were being watched, or that that somebody had their eye on you? Maybe you were in an establishment, you made eye contact with them, and it wasn't like positive eye contact, like a familiar kind of face. It seems to me that in this particular case, the perpetrator was, in fact, first off, aware that she worked there, aware that she was probably commonly on foot. They would have to have a familiar sense of this area, may have even been a patron of the skating rink, may have even bought snacks, at the snack bar where she worked. She's 16 years old, and I know you've been fired. You've expressed this actually on air before. It's one thing when you get fired when you're an adult, but you talk about putting blinders on. You're 16 years old, and you really feel like you've been gutted at that point in time, because it's one of your first jobs, maybe your first job ever, and you've built it all up in your mind. You've got this great job, or to you, it's a great job. You're making some money. And then all of a sudden, you're embarrassingly dismissed. Yeah, she would have blinders on, Dave, as she's walking out of this place. She's going to be so laser focused on the fact that she's just been, traumatized by what's happened. And she's a 16-year-old girl. Trust me, I used to have a 16-year-old girl in my house, and I understand the emotion. She wouldn't see a perpetrator coming her way, Dave.
That's so sad.
It really is. And I begin to think about the speed at which this would have taken place, because you think about the location of her body, that it is in a wooded area that's probably it's a familiar area to the perpetrator, maybe even to her. Maybe there was a path at some point in time you could have cut through. As a kid, there were a lot of cut throughs in my neighborhood where you could walk through an area. Some of them were wooded, that maybe you were only familiar with, or maybe that somebody in the area that resided there as well would be familiar with. There's no light. It's dark. It's nighttime, and you get overtaken in an area. She's just to lay it out plainly for you, Dave. She was assaulted in a way that, as you had mentioned, would have taken some time. She was beaten. She was also strangled, and then she was raped. And the rape in this particular case is very significant in the sense that the perpetrator actually left their calling card relative to her because it's the exam that came up later in the wake of the discovery of her body and in the evidence that they found, the trauma that she had endured. It was those bits of evidence that they collected at that autopsy way back in 1984 that would eventually lead to the arrest of a suspect, but not before some other folks were damaged along the way. It's one thing to be falsely accused of something, and you protest. I did not do this. I did not do this. You're lying about me. You're lying to other people about me. And no matter how much you protest, it's not going to change the attitude of the person that is necessarily accusing you. They've made up their mind many times already along the way, or the people that they're shouting this to about you. That you did, in fact, do something that you were falsely accused of. But how much more so, Dave, when you're thinking about the local authorities that can put the, I don't know, for lack of a better term, the strong arm on you.
Oh, buddy.
They threaten you with beating, or they threaten you with incarceration until you finally, they deny you a phone call. They deprive you of water. And that's, by the way, that's one of the tricks that's used many times. I don't know if you know this, with extended interviews. One of the things that happens is that the people that are conducting the interview will actually walk in with a bottle of water. Maybe there's two people in the room, and the interviewer will be sipping on the water, and the interview will go on for a protracted period of time. The person being interviewed is not offered water.
Right.
And then finally they'll say, look, I'm getting really thirsty. Can I have a bottle of water? Yeah, sure. We'll get you one. First,
right.
Can you answer that? Let's go back over this one more time. And guess what? They'll also do the same thing. And it doesn't have to be punches. They can also do the same thing with bathroom breaks. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you. I mean, Kim and I travel extensively. We're always on the road, and dude, at this season of my life, I got to stop more than I wish to. but you're sitting there in a chair. You've got people that are implying that you've done something wrong.
Yep.
Not just wrong. You've committed a homicide. That's going to make anybody want to void their bladder. You're sitting there and they're not responding to your request to go to the bathroom. Yeah. We'll get to that in just a moment. And what this is building up to, it's those small little things along the way that urge this person, listen, I've got to get relief. I'm thirsty. I've got to pee. I've got to do this. I'm hungry. You get to the point where you'll say just about anything just so you can get relief. And certain people know how to press those buttons, Dave.
Just so you know, I came about getting involved with crime coverage and things like that at an early age, being impacted by news things happening around me. Manson murders come to mind when I was a very small child. As an adult, I actually was the prime suspect in a crime that I didn't commit.
Wow.
And I've been in that chair knowing I'm innocent, knowing I didn't do anything. And I sat there, and now I tell everybody, you just need one word. Lawyer.
Yeah.
Don't talk. Lawyer.
Yeah.
They lie, they cheat, they steal. They will do everything they can because look, man, who doesn't want an easier day at work? Okay. We have a crime. We got a suspect. He looks good for it. Break him. Right. I either spend 2 hours break you and get into, or I got to go out and actually work. And so just lawyer. Don't talk. You're not going to do yourself any good. Tell them the truth. Okay. Tell them the truth and shut up. That's all I ever tell anybody.
Yeah.
But that's if you're innocent. If you're guilty, I don't do what you want. But if you're innocent, tell them the truth and stop. That's it.
Yeah.
Get a lawyer because they will trip you up. And when you find out people spend time in prison for confessing to a crime they didn't commit, how difficult, Joe, is it for a regular Joe Schmo, me, you get called to jury duty, and the prosecutor says we have this heinous crime, and we have a suspect who has admitted it. He admitted he did it. It was only after he found out that he might spend the rest of his life in jail that he has taken back his admission of guilt, his confession. But we've got him on tape. He confessed.
Yeah. Yeah. And a jury's going to think that's gold. I mean, they are, their conclusion is, well, these people with the badges, these people with authority, the people that are in charge of the grand jury, those people that are prosecuting the case, the guy that's sitting on the bench in the funny looking dress, they're all about justice, right? And sometimes it didn't work out. And Dave, three, not one, not two, but three guys in this particular case rolled over on this case. And Dave, they wound up spending double-digit time in prison for a heinous act that they didn't do.
There was a rape murder of a 16-year-old virgin, beautiful young girl. And as a father of daughters, I know what that dad, I know what he went into this thinking of his daughter and how much more he felt. And then knowing that it was stolen. And there are three guys who actually are good for the crime. And they're brought in. They go to trial. And you've got in 1984, when the crime took place, in 1986, when they got the conviction, our technology is not where it was 10 years later.
No.
It certainly wasn't where it was 20 years later.
Oh, no, Lord, no.
They were not idiots in 1984 and 1986. And science was really growing in the field. They had some strong evidence, Joe. They did have it. The police did. Some of it was so good that it actually worked to free the men wrongly convicted. But again, remember, they were still dealing with a 16-year-old girl who was doing nothing more than walking home from work after getting fired by some assistant manager at a snack shack, and she gets raped and murdered. And going back to this, Joe, they couldn't find her. Why could they not find her? I mean, you've got a limited pathway to where her body was and where she was headed. It wasn't like she was taken miles away.
No, it wasn't.
Is there a reason that they had trouble finding her? Do you think maybe she was kept somewhere and abused for a while and then taken out and hit and killed and then dropped there later on?
Well, I guess it could be possible. However, to be able to marry up the changes in her body with what they were visualizing at the time, and of course, they have not released this data yet because this case, as we know, is still being adjudicated. But here's the interesting thing, it has previously been adjudicated, but none of those records are available for us to view. But yeah, it would, and it is a protracted period of time. Let's back up just a second and consider when this young lady went disappearing. Theresa disappeared. Theresa disappeared back on November the 10th in 1984. She was not found until December the 5th.
Right.
So that's a protracted period of time. Yeah, almost a month. And when she's found, kind of hidden beneath brush that's been stacked on her. And they described it at the time as leaves. Right. Again, I think that goes to the speed at which this perpetrator tried to cover up her body. It's not like he went out with a shovel and dug a hole or even dug, into the earth or created a depressed area. He essentially just kind of piled stuff up on top of her. Is that enough to block someone's view of her? And what is their assumption? They know back then they would have known that she would have been a pedestrian. She would have been on foot. Why aren't you going out and looking to see if she's anywhere in walking distance? Right. Maybe their idea was she stepped out into the parking lot and she was snatched and she's disappeared. She's just vanished off the face of the planet. Was there a boyfriend that maybe she was involved with? Hey, let me ask you this. Do you think that snack assistant manager was questioned? Well, I don't know. There's one part of me that hopes he was.
Yeah.
The dad in me hopes that he was brought in and questioned extensively, to find out, well, what, you tell us exactly what did happen. We heard that she left here crying. How do you explain that? So had they exhausted every possible lead at that point? I think that, it's an interesting proposition that you put forward here with her, because you're thinking, Well, was she held captive somewhere to the point where the guy may have gotten tired of her being around, or he felt like it was too risky to keep her around, so he disposes of her in the most effective manner. I know that her. I'll put it to you this way: I know that the evidence of the trauma was still there to the point where they could appreciate it.
Right.
We're talking about evidence of strangulation. We're talking about evidence of blunt force trauma, because they're saying she was beaten. They don't say if she had a fractured skull or anything like this, but we know that trauma existed. And oh, by the way, they did a rape kit. They did a rape kit on her and retained the results from that. So there was actual seminal deposition into her body. However, I got to say, these three other individuals that were named, charged, prosecuted, and sentenced to prison, where they spent, what was it, like 18 years of their life in prison for this crime?
They did. They were convicted in 1986, and it was 2003 when they got the DNA back. But still, even in the case of one of the guys, the way that they got them, to back up a minute before we go full on,
Yeah.
they were in jail for all that long, which I cannot imagine. I for the life of me cannot. But they have three guys. They've got Mr. Kogut. I'm trying to remember his first name. John Kogut. John Kogut's a 21-year-old guy, and he was charged March 26, 1985. So we're talking 3.5 months after this crime has taken place, nearly 4 months, rather. And he's 21 years old. He's arrested and charged with second-degree murder and rape. He's a former resident of the area and was living in New York. He is a suspect when they interview 400 people. He's just a guy that strikes their fancy as somebody who, he might have done it. Police say he confessed, and that they say this 21-year-old John Kogut confessed and implicated two of his friends, 26-year-old John Restivo and 31-year-old Dennis Halstead. Now, when I was 31, Joe, I did not have a 21-year-old friend that I would have done anything with. Just saying.
No. No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So that hit me odd anyway. But anyway, so the police say they confessed. All three said they never did it and they never confessed. So I don't know what, we don't know what's going on. What we do know is that they went to trial, and they tried Mr. Kogut first by himself. And then they tried the other two guys together, and they all ended up convicted. And, you mentioned the interrogation and what happens, depriving you of a bathroom, water. Police said that there were 3 polygraph examinations, and that Kogut thought that though he was told that he failed the polygraphs, said he was innocent. They told him he failed over and over. You've had 3 polygraphs, John, and I know you say you didn't do it, but you know what? Nobody can fool a polygraph.
Right.
By the way, I've been in that chair. I've been in that polygraph chair with detectives looking at me through a one-way mirror or two-way mirror, where they can see you, but you can't see them.
Yeah.
And they give you brochures to look at while you're waiting. And the brochures tell you how accurate, how you can't fool the polygraph. It's to psych you out before you take the polygraph. It's such a mental nightmare. And that's what they did to this guy 3 times and convinced him. You're going down, man. You're going down for the rest of your life. And
well, imagine, as brutal as this case was in this little community, and it's kind of a village out on Long Island where they lived. And again, the population of Long Island is very dense. It wasn't as dense back then as it is now, but still dense. This has made the news.
oh, yeah.
And you can imagine just the parents around the area. And I'm not talking about Theresa's dad or mom or her family or associated family. I'm talking about all the families. You have something like this that happens in a quiet area where reports of the day reported that this just absolutely rocked the community.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody that they could take. I'm sure the DA wanted somebody they can take and say, you're responsible for it. So not only did they get one, they got three.
Yeah.
They get three people. And so that, that kind of makes it dies down. But, Theresa, I submit to you, was victimized again. Mm-hmm. She was victimized by the system. So you've got these three men who have been falsely accused and falsely convicted and falsely imprisoned. You've got Theresa, who suffered through this horrible trauma. Her dad and her mom, since that night that she disappeared the next morning, have been suffering and languishing with this all the way up until 1986, when there is a conviction and these guys are sentenced. Dave, they are also victims in this case. Can you imagine? You get this relief after the horror that you suffered from finding out what was done to your daughter. You get this little bit of relief, this little beam of sunshine that comes in and says, okay, at least we know who did this. And you're told by the police that they know who did it. You're told by the prosecutor that you know who did it. You've got a judge. You were probably there. They adjudicated this person guilty. They're sent away, and you're given this false sense of reality. And then all of a sudden, new testing comes to light. All these years later, in 2003, these guys have been cooling their heels in jail, and they're cut loose now. I'd be very curious to know, how can you, as a department, police, prosecutor, go to the home if you have the intestinal fortitude and the courage to do it? Go to Mr. Fusco's home, knock on his door, have him come to the door, stare him in the face, and say, we got it wrong. We got it wrong. Your daughter's killer might still be out there if they are still alive. But all this time, in the name of justice for your daughter, we've kept three men deprived of their families, deprived of ever having a family, perhaps deprived of their freedom to come and go. We've deprived them of their freedom all this time. And you are deprived of justice. Theresa, with her death, she furnished information about what was left within her body. When they did this rape exam on her, this rape kit, Dave, they were able to discover that there was a seminal sample left behind, ejaculate from within her. And one of the things that we do in the morgue is, and I've described this before, but we do swabs at autopsy. We do smears on little glass slides, and we also retain the swabs as well. We allow those to air dry, and they're sent into the crime lab where they're tested. I think the big question here, because in '84 you would not have been doing DNA testing on these swabs. I think the only thing that you could have really been looking for, some of the things forensically you would have been looking for, is to see if the sperm if there was any motility to the sperm, were they moving or was the guy shooting blanks? Secondly, you'd want to know if the guy was a secretor. A secretor is something that we would do in the past, where I think it's the number, I can't remember that. It seems like it's like 40% of the population are secretors, and what that means in various body fluids, including like saliva and semen, you're going to find red blood cells. And in those red blood cells, you can do blood typing. Okay. But even with blood typing, you can only narrow it down so far. The rarest blood types like AB neg, and I think that's like 1 in, 149 people have AB neg. It's not like, you're looking at DNA and you're talking about numbers that are millions, billions, and trillions, or quintillions, or, those fanciful numbers that they throw out there like that. So I really wonder what they did as far as testing goes with that rape kit all those years ago. I do know this, they retained it. And boy, I tell you what, these years later, they hit the jackpot, didn't they, Dave?
Tell me what they found, Joe. What did they find when they pulled this out? and they start looking at this case again, because again, remember now, we got the 2003, 4, 5 period when the 3 guys get out of jail on the DNA
Hmm.
evidence.
Yeah.
But that just means that we've now got an unsolved crime that is now 21 years old, because it's 2005 when Kogut finally gets cut loose. The murder happened in November 1984. And so here we are. We're back at square one. The only thing we know for sure is the 3 guys that were in jail for the last 18 years for this murder didn't do it. So where do you go from there? You pull the rape kit out and start looking.
Well, you can start looking. I think the first place that you would have gone to, and you've heard this before, is you'd go to the CODIS database, because this is a violent rape. Many people opine that an individual that will commit this level of violence, this kind of
Mhm.
sexual assault like this, they get a taste for it, Dave, and they can't stop with just one. And the idea is, as it turns out, the perpetrator had no prior. There was apparently no previous relationship between her and the perpetrator, the guy that turns out to be the perpetrator. So you're thinking, well, if he will randomize a 16-year-old, who else has he randomly attacked over the same period of time? And is there evidence that he could have been in the CODIS database? Did they press forward with that at that limited amount of time? Because this predates the what has now become the utility of investigative genetic genealogy. And so not only do you have that sample that's left behind, but once technology gets caught up with this, the FBI now has their own IgG team that works for the FBI, but yet they still, as well they should, have to consult with our friends at Othram. And buddy, that's what they did. They went to the Meadowlands there in the Woodlands, Texas, and said, "Look, we've got a case here. We've already, the locals have already wrongfully convicted 3 fellows that have been languishing in prison. They've already paid through the nose for 2 of them, but yet there's still an unanswered question about who's ultimately responsible for Theresa's death. Can you help us?" And of course, don't ever present Othram with a challenge, because they'll pick you up on it. If there's
So
money to
smart.
be thrown at it, yeah, and you're going to have to defeat those numbers. And so, they hop right on this, and they use open source DNA. They don't go into 23andMe and all that. There are certain databases that are open. And buddy, when they did, they got a hit. They
Wow.
got a hit. They built out a family tree on the suspect that had left behind DNA. And what's fascinating is that the cops actually did the right thing here. They had a name, and they went and sat on him, didn't they, Dave?
And I think the part about this that I love, and I whenever we mention Othram, I think you're really good to point out that they're not funded. They have to raise money every time they do a case, and they got to get $7,500 and then some just to start working on it. And their backlog, but the work they do is capable of producing this, where they can narrow it down and say, okay, just like they did with Koberger, that case came down to, we know it that the person who left this here is related to this fella, is the son of this person. I mean, they narrow it down that far. And then they get a name and they start watching him. They're watching Richard Bilodeau, and they're waiting to see when we can get what we need. And they finally get it. You started off the show talking about cold coffee and smoothies.
Yeah.
Cold coffee and smoothies. And I knew that we were going to end with cold coffee and smoothies. But, justice delayed is not always justice denied, but it sure
Yeah.
isn't the same.
No,
And
it's
when you're
not.
talking about something for this family to go on for 41 years, 3 men to lose half their lives, I mean, this is a tragedy on so many levels. But 41 years later, Joe, that straw from a smoothie led police to 63-year-old Richard Bilodeau.
Yeah, and he has just been hooked up on charges. I mean, this is very recent. Now, his trial has not taken place yet. He is not convicted. But interestingly enough, the prosecutor who stated that they had no involvement in the original case. And of course, they make the argument that technology has now caught up with this case to the point where they're saying that it is a 100, and this is the prosecutor saying it, not Joseph Scott Morgan and not Brother Dave Mack. This is the prosecutor saying that this is a 100% match. So they're going to take him to court. And what they're going to take him to court with is they're going to take in a wheelbarrow full of data, numbers that will require geneticists to sit on the stand and look those jury members in the eye and be able to say, that within reasonable scientific certainty, this is the perpetrator. I guess in closing with all of this, I would probably say, will the prosecutor, even though they weren't part of the original trial, the office was, will the prosecutor have the intestinal fortitude to look at that jury and say, first time out, we got this wrong. We admit that we got this wrong. This time, we have it right. I hope that they're willing to do that. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.